Welcome, everyone. Today, we're focusing on the analyze portion of the mentoring cycle for the content instruction portfolio. So, this is the stage where mentors diagnose a mentee's instructional needs related to content instruction. Our goal is to strengthen your ability to identify specific instructional areas for growth, use data effectively, and craft a SMART goal that guides coaching conversations and ultimately improves student outcomes. So let's go ahead and get started. Content instruction goes beyond classroom management. Remember, management is what we talked about in the previous portfolio. Content instruction is about how a teacher enables students to grasp and apply disciplinary concepts. Mentors should focus on instructional practices that strengthen students' conceptual understanding, strengthen their critical thinking, and strengthen their engagement in rigorous learning. These areas, depth of content knowledge, planning, and delivery, represent where most instructional growth happens. Deep content knowledge allows teachers to plan and respond effectively during instruction. For instance, a science teacher who understands why a process happens can guide students to reason through phenomena rather than just memorize facts. When mentors observe lessons, look for evidence of conceptual understanding, accurate explanations, and connections across topics. And so this is very important for us to make sure that we're not just looking at the lesson plan, although the plan can be a great place to start, having the conversation, that pre-conference with the teacher about the lesson plan. But when we're actually in the classroom and we're observing the instructional choices in action, we need to be looking at the impact that it's having on students' learning. And those are things that we can look at informally, such as, the questions that students ask. Are they asking clarifying questions, or are they asking questions that truly represent some deeper critical thinking? Are they still confused at the end of a lesson? Is that apparent in the exit ticket or the way that they're approaching their independent work? Or do they seem to have a pretty good grasp on the key essential vocabulary and concepts and are applying those successfully in an independent manner? And so we don't want to just look at what the teacher's doing. We always want to trace that all the way through to the impact it's having on students in the classroom. Effective planning, as we were just talking about, ensures lessons build knowledge intentionally and inclusively. Mentors should examine how mentees are planning lessons. Are learning goals clear, and are they measurable? Are scaffolds designed to meet diverse learner needs? Reviewing lesson plans and observation notes can reveal whether instruction is coherent, whether it's standards-based, and whether it's purposeful. So we definitely want to take time as mentors to review the planning process with the mentees. Look at their lesson plans. Let them, walk you through their curriculum. How are they internalizing those lesson plans? And are they truly able to articulate an alignment between standards, objectives, activities, and assessments? Do they see that line all the way through? And so that's a very important conversation piece to have. But as I mentioned earlier, we definitely do not want to stop there. Delivery is where planning becomes practice. Effective delivery involves pacing, which many teachers, even experienced teachers, struggle with pacing. It's going to involve modeling and responsive teaching. When mentors observe, they can look for indicators such as student engagement, clarity of explanations, and how the mentee adjusts instruction when students show confusion or simply need some additional support. Strong analysis begins with solid data. So, as a mentor, you should begin to triangulate this information. And you want to think back to the classroom management portfolio, that triangulation process that you used, what you were actually observing in the formal observation, what you were seeing in some specific student data. For example, when it came to being on task and things like that. And also the conversation pieces that you were having, those conferences that you were having with the mentee. So you want to triangulate what you see, what the mentee says, and what the students produce. For example, if observation notes show limited student talk and the mentee expresses uncertainty about questioning techniques, that's clear evidence the goal may center on improving instructional dialogue or scaffolding student reasoning. And so sometimes we see something. In fact, at this point, you've probably been in the classroom so many times, you have a really good idea of where you need to start with this instructional content instruction goal. But you want to still make sure that you're triangulating it. Make sure that the mentee is aware that this is something that he or she needs to work on, and definitely connect it to student work. What are the artifacts that we could look at that the students are producing that show that this is an area of need? So if we look here, what I've done is just tried to recalibrate us with a SMART goal. What a SMART goal is, why it's essential, and why it's so important when we're trying to coach. We want to revisit this goal, the template for this goal, because you're going to use it again in this portfolio. Make sure to restate it and ensure it to ensure clarity. You want to ask yourself, was the goal clear? Is it measurable? Does the goal directly connect to improving student learning or behavior outcomes? And in this case, we're going to tie it to the learning outcomes. And this particular slide just provides you with a foundation for crafting your own SMART goal to meet your mentee's needs. So at the top, you'll see that there's a template. You do not have to use this by any means. It's just you can rearrange it as needed, but it does need to have all those ingredients. It's got to have that specificity component, a specific date, a time frame. It's got to be measurable. How are we going to track the progress? It's got to be achievable. Is it realistic? It's got to be relevant. Does the goal align with our overall plan? So that's where that coherence and unity comes in your coaching plan. And is it time bound? Do we have a deadline for reaching this? So I've also provided an example here that correlates with the template. Of course, you can rearrange it as needed, but it does need to have all those components. So here's the example by November 15th. Notice that's our specific date and time frame. The mentee will implement at least 2 open-ended questions in each mathematics lesson to promote student reasoning. So that's the clearly defined behavior or strategy implemented. And in this case, we're also going to say resulting in increased student participation and use of academic vocabulary. So that's that measurable outcome as measured by, and we're going to say here, observation notes and student discussion transcripts. So that gives us an idea of how we're going to measure it, what the time frame is, etc. So don't forget to lean into those SMART goals when you're developing, using the goal that you've set. So identifying the area of need and making it a goal. Make sure that you're using this SMART goal to do so. So the ultimate purpose of mentoring is to improve student outcomes. That's why we're working with the mentee. Yes, we definitely want the mentee to grow in instructional confidence and that professional assurance, that sense of efficacy that we all want to have in the classroom. But ultimately, we're working with that mentee because at heart, both together, mentor and mentee, we want to make sure that we're impacting students in a positive way, leading to overall student growth. So every SMART goal should clearly connect to what students will gain. If mentees see that their growth directly benefits students, they are more motivated to implement and sustain those changes. So remember that improved instruction equals improve student learning. And we constantly want to link the teacher actions and those teacher moves to the impact that it's going to have from students. So I put a couple of examples here of how we can make sure that we're articulating that to our mentees. Stronger explanations. So when we are explaining content to our students more clearly as teachers, that's going to lead to a deeper understanding and a more precise understanding for our students. When teachers are able to better implement questioning techniques, better formulate them, provide wait time, provide some sort of method for calling on students, we have higher engagement. And then typically we're going to see that we've got higher critical thinking skills. So the reasoning is going to be greater for our students as well. And another example, of course, is aligned planning, as I was talking about earlier. It's going to lead to more consistent mastery of that, the success criteria that we have for our students. In our goal setting conference, we want to make sure that we are collaborating. So we're not judging, we're not trying to pick them apart in any sort of way. We want to, of course, begin with that shared data. Invite the mentees' reflections on that shared data. And this is where I always encourage you, yes, go in for that formal evaluation, but have your mentee watch a video or watch some clips of him or herself teaching, and have them come with a good idea before that conference, of what they would like to work on as well. And then, of course, we want to make sure that we're guiding them toward a focused, actionable goal. We're not trying to solve every single, issue that we see. We're not trying to improve every particular instructional strategy. We're selecting the one that we can leverage, that particular improvement would lead to overall improvement in many areas for student outcomes. We want to use coaching language, ask probing questions that help the mentee name patterns and own the goal. And then we want to conclude by outlining supports and follow-up actions. And of course, that's going to be in the next portion. The develop portion, if you remember, is where we develop that coaching plan. And then ultimately the implement is where we're going to implement the plan. So I do encourage you to use some explicit coaching here, some direct coaching or directive coaching. We talked about that in modules 1 and 2. If you need to, go back and look at those. But yes, we do want, at this point, we're trying to do more of that cognitive coaching where we're using questioning, but we have switched from classroom management to content instruction. So they're probably going to need some direct coaching here as well. Definitely use the questioning, but then lean into that explicit direct coaching. You're the expert here. You're the experienced person. So lean into your wisdom there and share that with the mentee. So to close, remember that the analyze phase is the foundation of effective mentoring. When we focus on instructional practice, we need to use data to guide our thinking, and we want to co-develop meaningful goals. This sets our mentees and their students up for success, and ultimately it sets us up for success as well. As mentors, if we're not going to be very successful if we don't have clear coaching plans that are effecting change in each classroom that we are supporting. So before we wrap it up for this module, we just want to take a moment to reflect. Make sure that you see Canvas for videos, resources, templates, and more to support the analyze portion of your portfolio. Remember that the portfolio is actually going to follow the same format as your previous classroom management portfolio. So don't hesitate to keep track of those artifacts as you go. You will need 2 to 3 relationship building, 2 to 3 coaching and support, and 2 to 3 monitoring progress. They do need to show unity and cohesion through the coaching plan. So keep that in mind. And let me just give you a little heads up. You can actually reuse your relationship building ones for this one. So the ones that you used for classroom management, you can actually reuse them for this one. You're welcome to select different ones if you would like to, but you're welcome to reuse them. So, all right. I hope you have a wonderful week and continuing that awesome mentoring. Reach out if you have any questions.